This is video 6 in our series on how to implement a more conversation-based selling approach. In this video, we will discuss how this approach can improve your ability to get around common sales objections. And when you're first interacting with prospects, you are guaranteed to face objections again and again. Objections like, I'm not interested, we do not have any budget right now, we already used someone for that, we cannot make any changes right now. And there are certainly other objections that will come up, but these are the main objections that prospects will use to try to get rid of you when you're reaching out or as an excuse to avoid agreeing to have a longer conversation with you. And while these are really difficult objections to not only get around, but to simply respond to, the conversation-based selling approach actually gives us a very easy objection response to understand and remember, and one that has a very good chance of getting around all of these objections. And I'll show you what that is and how to use it. But before I do that, let's talk about what the product selling salesperson does when they face all of these objections. And that is that they go back to their natural instinct of trying to sell the product. And it's very understandable. When you're in product selling mode and a prospect says, I'm not interested, your natural instinct is to try to think of something in that exact moment that you can say to try to change the prospect from being not interested to being interested. So you might try to say something about the product, try to attempt to explain it better, or talk about features that you haven't talked about more to try to make the prospect interested. And this is an example of trying to overcome the objection. You're trying to resolve it, trying to change the prospect's mind, trying to change them from not interested to being interested. And this is a more challenging approach for how to respond to objections with a low probability for success, because it's fairly difficult to change the prospect's mind. And when you're first interacting with a prospect, you really only have a couple minutes to work with. So you really don't have the time and attention that you need to change that prospect's mind. You don't have the time that you need to deliver your case as to why they should be interested in what you have to say or the product you're selling. The other thing is that you really don't need to overcome the objection to try to change the prospect from being not interested to being interested in buying your product, because buying the product is not the next step in the sales process. The next step in the sales process is simply talking more and having a longer conversation. So technically, we don't need to overcome and resolve the objection when we're first reaching out and interacting with the prospect. In fact, when you're in product selling mode, all of these objections become a lot more difficult because these are actually valid reasons to stop talking and not keep moving forward. If you're trying to sell the product and the prospect does not have any money or budget right now, that's a valid reason to not keep moving forward and talk anymore. If you're trying to sell the product and the prospect is already using something in the area where you have something to sell, that's a valid and good reason to not keep moving forward. But look at this. If we shift from trying to sell the product and change to trying to sell the conversation, these same objections actually become invalid. If we reach out to a prospect and they're already using a competitor in the area where we have something to sell, that's a valid reason to stop moving forward. But if we're not selling the product and if we're simply selling the step of talking more, that's not a valid reason to not keep moving forward. That objection actually becomes invalid. If the prospect does not have budget right now, that's not a valid reason to not talk more. So when you shift from selling the product to selling the conversation, you actually make many of the prospect's common sales objections invalid. And you can actually use this as part of your objection response by actually educating the prospect on what you're trying to do with your objection response by saying something like, and if the prospect says, we don't have any budget right now. Hey, I understand. And I want you to know I'm actually not reaching out to try to sign you guys up or sell you anything today. I don't even know if you guys are a good fit with what we sell or not. I'm just reaching out to start the dialogue between our two organizations and have a first conversation. I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing in this particular area. And if it makes sense, I can share some information about what we offer and what we do. That way, when you do reach a point where you're ready to make a change or before you begin your budget planning process, you can then know who we are, how we can help, and have clarity around the options that are available to you. And after that, you could then try to close for a particular time. Are you available next week or the week after? And this objection response is what we refer to as, instead of trying to overcome the objection, we're deflecting the objection. We're not trying to change them from not interested to interested, and we're not trying to change them from not making a change today to wanting to make a change today. We're trying to deflect the objection and bounce off of it and keep moving forward. If you've watched The Karate Kid, this is similar to like a wax on, wax off. You're trying to wax off and block the kick so that you can then keep moving forward and stay in the game. And this particular objection response that I showed you goes more in the direction of going for the close. You do have some other options of different ways to deflect the objection. For example, if you want to deflect the objection but not go for the close right then, and maybe keep the conversation going so that you can find a better moment or better reason to go for the close, you could deflect with your pain questions by saying something like, hey, I understand I'm not reaching out to try to sign you guys up or sell anything, but if I could ask you real quick, how do you feel about the amount of leads your reps are currently generating? So what we're doing there is we're deflecting the objection, getting away from it, keeping the conversation going by asking a question. And what happens here is that we're asking a pain question, and there's a very good chance that the prospect is going to respond to this question with some sort of answer. Then you have a few different directions you can go. You can ask a follow-up question based on the answer they just gave you. You could ask a different question, or if you ask a pain question and you get a really good answer back, which would be an answer that signifies that the prospect might have concerns or pain in that area, that gives you a justification for talking more. And then you could go for the close by saying something like, well, that's why I'm reaching out, because that's an area that we actually help with, and it would probably make sense to talk more. Are you available next week where we could schedule some time to talk about that in a little bit more detail, and I can share some examples of how we've helped other businesses in that particular area? You could deflect objections in the exact same way with your current state questions, and this is used in the exact same way as your pain questions. You're just asking about what's going on in the particular area where you have something to sell. Deflecting to your current state questions work really well when the objection is, we already used someone today. Oh, I understand. And listen, I'm not reaching out to try to sign you guys up or sell anything. If I could ask you real quick, how long have you been working with them? How's it going? Are you guys using any of this? How many systems do you have? You can also deflect to your value proposition. There are common scenarios where a prospect might ask you a question, and it doesn't really sound like an objection, but it is kind of a screening question, such as, what is this call in regards to, or is this a sales call? And if you're in product selling mode, you might respond to that objection by saying, I'm calling to schedule a meeting, I'm calling to introduce myself or our company, I'm calling to learn about what your needs are in this particular area. And when you respond in any way like that, that's going to give the gatekeeper or the prospect what they're looking for, which is an indication that you are a salesperson trying to sell something, and then they'll give you another objection or just end the interaction or call right then. But what you can do is you can deflect to your value proposition by saying something like, well, the reason for the call is we help businesses to get their reps generating more leads and improve the performance for every rep on the team. And after you say that, you can just stop talking. And what this does is that it's kind of a curveball to both gatekeepers and target prospects, in that it really doesn't answer their question of what they were looking for. They were looking for, are you trying to sell me your product? So it can diffuse or delay the instant I'm not interested. So hopefully that not only improves your ability to get around these objections, but hopefully that makes responding to these objections a lot easier and decreases the level of anxiety and stress you experience when you're interacting with prospects for the first time. And the last thing you might want to think about or do as you implement this objection handling methodology is to practice these objection responses. Because cold calls and interactions with prospects are really quick, and it's important to have these responses at the front of your mind and ready to go. And SalesScripter actually has a tool that can help you to practice talking with prospects and practice your objection handling, called the Sales Simulator. And so this is an AI version of a sales prospect, and you can enter some details here specific to your situation. But if you're practicing objection handling, there's one setting here that you might want to look at in particular, and that's the level of difficulty. This determines how much and how many objections the AI prospect will give you. And to show you how this works, I'm actually going to put it on medium, and all you have to do is click start to start practicing your pitch and objection responses.
Hello, this is Mary.
Hey Mary, it's Michael Halper from Sales Scripter. Did I catch you in the middle of anything?
Hi Michael, I'm a bit busy. What is this call about?
Reason for the call is we work with businesses and help them to get the most out of their sales reps.
I'm not sure we need that right now. We have a provider.
Okay, are you working with a company to help with sales training?
Yes, we're currently working with another company for that.
Do you mind if I ask who you're working with?
I'd prefer not to disclose that. Can you just send me your information?
Certainly can. So I know what to send you. Can I ask you, how do you feel about the leads your reps are generating in terms of quantity?
The quantity is decent, but we always aim for more.
Well, that's why I'm reaching out, because we help to increase the lead production. I'd like to discuss that with you. Are you available next week for a quick call?
I might have some time next Tuesday afternoon.
Using tools like this can help you to be more prepared for objections and perform better in a similar way to how a professional athlete will practice and warm up before going into a game. Tools like this can help you to warm up and practice before those live and critical interactions that you have with prospects. And if you want to try the Sales Simulator, we have a 7-day free trial where you can test and use the Sales Simulator for free. And I'll put a link in the description to where you can sign up for that. And that is pretty much it for this module. In the next video, we will wrap up this video series by discussing how this approach can improve and change the actual conversations you have with your sales prospects. And we look forward to seeing you there.